Hey, all, welcome back to part two of our diabetes masterclass preventing, managing, and/or reversing type 2 diabetes. I just really want to appreciate you for, again, taking the time to invest in yourself. One of the things as I looked back and rewatched the first masterclass myself, I really thought about was, you know, so much of this is mindset. So much of this is self value. So much of this is maybe choosing to have some different perception or some different perspective that really gives the opportunity um, to maybe live or even make different decisions. Because I would bet that some of this is, not brand new information, but sometimes we need to hear information over and over to just remind ourselves um, the best choices to make, or to really look at ourselves with a significant amount of self value. One of the things that I really want to encourage you to remember is that the perspective of what are the downsides or what are the risks if you take the shortcut. And in this situation, the shortcut would be considered for anybody that has made certain lifestyle choices that have got them to having risk factor markers or diabetes, and now having the side effects of treating or managing it instead of reversing it. I was reminded yesterday, actually, by a client who quoted one of our old master classes saying, I didn't have any side effects of the medication. They went to immediate care for something that I'm aware of. But what I remembered when I was taking it is that one of the reasons I need to get off this as soon as possible is that 9 out of 10 medication side effects are occurring silently. So they're happening in your body without realizing it. So it's a very poor assessment to say, if I feel it, therefore I'm having a side effect. Those are just the most obvious side effects. A couple quotes from the book Outlive, which I know I suggested last time, but a couple quotes from the book Outlive. Number one, medicine's largest failure is treating disease at the end of the time scale. And so you think about that. It's understandable why medically it would be treated at the end of a time scale, because that's when those symptoms really show up. That's often for people, unfortunately, when the motivation's there. As you may already know, people tend to have heart disease for multiple decades before they have the heart attack. And for many people, the first symptom of heart disease is their first heart attack. And some of those are fatal. Now, since the early 2000s, autopsy reports have shown that, children as young as 7 or 8 years old who pass away from car accidents have the starting signs of, atherosclerosis, or the hardening of their arteries, at such a young age. But, that person's not having a heart attack at 10, they're having a heart attack at 40 or 50 or 60. And so, the sugar and the junk and the preservatives that are, eaten even as a child, are the starting point. And this is how people are having heart disease at younger and younger ages in some cases. So cancer, I mean, even once, everybody has cancer starting or growing in their body. And you may remember that as well, that you have anywhere from, 100 to 10,000 cancer cells at any given moment. Even for those, that's for people who don't have cancer, because cancer, is the, it its most simplistic form is cells not dying off. And so they're growing, abnormally. But on average, it takes 8 years for even the most sensitive tests to pick it up. And as far as diabetes goes, there's lots and lots of data that what is made to be normal, if there's especially, and here's the scary thing, guys, what's made to be normal is progressively worsened or made more acceptable, unless there's a drug for it. So think about that. I'm going to give you a few examples. So if that was like, holy, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean it's made to be normal? So certain things like liver enzymes, which there is not a drug to treat specifically because the liver is the detoxifier. So it's actually typically harmed the more drugs that are put into the body. Those have actually had over time some of the normalcies, the range widened And there are certain indicators that show that the person actually is sick, and their blood work may show healthy because they've given it such an acceptable wide range. Now, look at the flip side. Drugs, for instance, for diabetes, they've lowered what normal is from under 110 fasting blood sugar to under 100. That puts more people on drugs. The 2017 blood pressure guidelines got people off of drugs, and they were magically reversed. And those guidelines showed that massive amounts of data indicated that people under certain blood pressure counts were more damaged by the drug than they were from having early high blood pressure issues. So depending on your health levels, under 140 over 90 or under 150 over 90, if you were put on a medication to get you lower, it was actually causing more death and more problems than if you took no medication at all. It actually decreased your life expectancy to take a drug. And all the way back in the early 2000s, normal cholesterol, total cholesterol, was lowered from 240 down to 200, making Lipitor over $8 billion in revenue. And it just so happened that 9 of the 15 scientists, public data, were being paid $50,000 or more as consultants for the drug companies that they were non-biased showing. So again, if you can be put on a drug, magically those numbers keep getting reduced to add more people to a drug scale in general, not in all things, but there's plenty of data points that show that. However, there are also some numbers that are considered normal that maybe are not good. And again, lots of evidence shows that there's some corruption in the system. So we're going to really focus today in part 2 on actionable items. So we're going to spend less time talking about drugs and side effects, and really spend more time talking about actionable items. So before we do that, though, I am going to rattle through a few statistics, and these are our last, baseline statistics on diabetes itself. So diabetes, death from heart attack and stroke, or heart disease and stroke, are 200 to 400% higher with diabetes. 75% of diabetics have high blood pressure due to the damage or destruction of their blood vessels from too much sugar in their blood. Leading causes of new cases of blindness, age 20 to 74, from diabetes. It's the number one cause of kidney disease. So why? Because your kidneys are your filter. And that's why actually you can, when you pee a lot, is a diabetes symptom. It's because your body's dumping sugar out of your blood. Diabetes is the number one cause of amputations on your limbs. It can cause severe dental disease. Sugar erodes the enamel, causes cavities, can cause you to have root canals, which also, as you may have read, increased risk of cancer and other long-term health issues. Poor diet or diabetes increase the likelihood of birth defects and spontaneous abortions, and they even are able, it's even able to damage your nerve system. So again, lots of issues with being diabetic here. So we're going to add in this other screenshot and start to just talk about, first of all, sugar. So if you're going to be simplistic, what's the number one thing that causes people to have issues? Diabetes is sugar. There's an argument, even in the documentary that was very popular years back called What the Health, that showed that, protein can increase diabetes. But we'll talk about how that is, what ratios to do. But added sugars, so since the low fat movement, so give or take 50 plus years ago, fat was considered the trigger for heart disease. And again, through a variety of corrupt situations, instead of denoting good fats versus bad fats, healthy saturated fats versus unhealthy, like the damaging effects, for instance, of pasteurized dairy versus the healthy fat of saturated fat that's, for instance, in an avocado or a coconut or something like that. Fat was removed largely from many products. It's also the densest calorie. So those that watch calories, fat is more than twice as dense calorie-wise versus protein or sugar. So removing fat allows for higher quantities of food to be consumed. But when fat is a big contributor to flavor, and because it's such a large contributor to flavor, sugar has been the replacement. So sugar is snuck into so many things if you're eating processed foods. So added sugar is basically anything with an OSE. So there's a whole bunch of things, but if it glucose, dextrose, fructose, high fructose corn syrup, different things like that. Now, one of the things that is that's interesting, because we have to look at regardless of if you feel more I'm going to say biblical versus evolutionary and the different theories, and really when I talk about it, I don't care which one you subscribe to, but what is pretty well established is it's only been 100 to 150 years, maybe 200, that people have had the means of having, worldwide or through most of us, enough food all the time. Whether that's through refrigeration, preservation, all sorts of issues that normally come with storing food. Food was fairly scarce, and this is an argument for your body responding well to times of fasting, which can help with blood sugar. But also fructose, tends to be more prevalent in things that are seasonal, like fruits, certain higher fructose vegetables like sweet corn. And what it does is it's more addictive, and it's more difficult to process. It actually increases fat storage. So yes, fruit and vegetables are healthy, but of course, what has the food industry done? Well, they've taken and extrapolated it out, and higher fructose or high fructose corn syrup, for instance, is incredibly prevalent in processed foods. And what happens is it actually causes your body to be more hungry. It spikes your blood sugar and causes more of an insulin response, which creates more of a craving. So on the sweetness scale, if glucose is 100, fructose is all the way over here at like 120. High fructose corn syrup can get all the way up to 170 plus, where on the other end, like lactose, the milk sugar, most people wouldn't think of milk as being sweet, but there is some sugar in milk. Lactose is really low sweetness, so less craving causing. So added sugars. Another thing to watch out for outside of added sugars that is actually absolutely horrible for diabetics is artificial sweeteners. The reason artificial sweeteners, I could go into how they're neurotoxic, how they cause multiple sclerosis, cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, all sorts of neurotoxic conditions. But for the sake of really talking about the science for what you're watching, artificial sweeteners, most commonly sucralose, Splenda, Equal, what they do is they cause an insulin response. So your body thinks you consume sugar, so therefore you release insulin. But actually, since there's no sugar, that insulin sits in your bloodstream and makes you hungry and actually makes you crave carbohydrates because now it's released it. So there's multiple studies one direction, and there's no studies the other direction, where they've actually looked at, for instance, diet soda versus regular soda and weight loss. And even though the group that consumes regular soda consumes significantly more calories, the diet soda group always gains more weight. It also jacks up your hormone levels, which creates insulin sensitivity problems, can mess with your pancreas. The long-term effects of these, of course, pancreatic failure. This is why some people have to start taking insulin externally or from an outside source. We could go on and on and on, but there's even sucralose is frequently in things that people think of as healthy. So like, my kids play baseball and they get Gatorade Zero, and I have actually done this, although I disagree with Gatorade for 15 other reasons with the colorings and the amount of sugar. I'll switch out a regular Gatorade versus the Gatorade Zero because of the damaging effects on a child. And I think the parents are bringing them because they're trying to actually be, healthier. Similarly, those new, for instance, that are really popular, those Celsius drinks, many of those, not only do they have 200 milligrams of caffeine, but most of them have sucralose. So, there are these fat burners. They say this healthy, they have B vitamins and all this stuff. It's marketed as a healthy drink. I would make a strong argument that it is way worse for you than healthy. Is it better than Monster, or is it better than C4, or is it better than, Red Bull? Sure. But that doesn't make it, healthy. So what is added sugar? What does it look like? It's anywhere where you're adding OSE. And so nutrition wise, there's a few things that I want to really cover nutritionally that are very specific to diabetes. One, for blood sugar raising, absorption rate of the sugar is a big deal. So for instance, if you drink a soda, you're going to have your blood sugar go up way faster than, for instance, even if you eat like a dessert, like a cheesecake, because the cheesecake has fat, which slows the absorption of the sugar into your bloodstream. It slows the digestive progression. So two things that really help with slowing sugar absorption, affecting your blood sugar, are fat and fiber. So where are those at? Fat is in, of course, nuts, meats. It's even in certain like fruits or vegetables like avocado and coconut. But healthy fat consumed in a meal slows the absorption rate, so slows the rise in blood sugar. Additionally, fiber. So fiber is in fruits and vegetables specifically, and fiber, certain animals like, for instance, a cow can break down the fiber in grass and use it as fuel. Humans cannot. So there's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. And insoluble fiber goes through your digestive tract. It helps you have normal bowel regulation. But fiber also lowers blood sugar spikes in your diet. So, this is why, for instance, drinking juice versus eating an apple, way different levels of blood sugar. So whenever you can eat the whole thing, the whole fruit, the whole vegetable, and I'll openly tell you as I say this, I've even fallen victim and made some mistakes myself. I'm going to say recently, as much as a year ago, for a little over a year, we still do get Elixir raw juice every week, but it got to the point where I was quote unquote fasting, or not eating, just drinking bone broth or just drinking protein shakes in the morning, kind of as like a kickstart. But what I started adding was a glass of raw juice, and I could justify it because it's full of the B vitamins, the C's. It's organic, it's cold pressed, it's much more usable. But the reality was, even as much as I personally exercise, starting the day with juice, in a 10 or 12 ounces was way more sugar than my body could process. And I felt worse doing the body fat tracking, gained a couple of percentage points of body fat. I mean, so spending extra money trying to be right, I got into a mistaken mindset and started drinking juice. And if you are somebody who does not work out and does not work out intensely, something like juice is nearly never necessary or nearly never helpful, whether that's kids or adults. High blood sugar spikes, no fiber in it or minimal fiber in it, like if you get a little bit of pulp with orange juice. But like I quoted last time, when you think about nutrition, give or take 50% of your diet calories ideally come from fat, 25% give or take from protein, and 25 from carb. Where most people actually miss the most is healthy protein, good sources of protein. To consume enough protein, I personally drink 2 of our grass-fed whey shakes per day. So the grass-fed chocolate whey just shaken up in water. But the reason is, and even do this, so if you're a fairly lean eater, like if you only consume, let's say, 2,000 calories a day, that would mean 500 calories should come from protein. That would be 125 grams. Most people don't get enough. And if you ate, 2,500 calories, it'd be over 150 grams. And if you eat over 3,000 calories, it would be closer to 200 grams of protein just to get your 25% of calories from protein. And so there's an argument, and specifically, it's most highlighted in the documentary that I think it's still on Netflix, called What the Health. But What the Health is a very pro-vegan documentary. And they make an argument in there about too much protein, especially animal protein, causing diabetes. And the way that can affect your blood sugar is a transition called turning protein into ketones. And so what happens is if you consume too much protein in individual meals, so if you consume more than 30 grams every 2 to 3 hours, what tends to happen is your body converts the protein into a ketone, and the ketone converts into a kind of a variation of a carb and can actually raise your blood sugar. So their argument is to stay away from protein. I do not agree with that. I think there's a lot of scientific validation necessary for many of the claims that they make. But what was amazing at the time, I watched many of people that I knew, whether I played basketball with them or knew them socially, that just went vegan for a period of time. And certainly, especially at the beginning, they did tend to lose weight. Long term, though, and for many without the good base knowledge on how to do it right, they tended to gain a lot of that weight back. So again, looking at your calorie consumption, where can you add fat, decrease carbohydrates? One simple thing, if you're like, hey, this is so complex for me, one simple thing to do would be to just cut all bread. Just cut all bread. Don't eat bread. And ideally don't eat cereal, rice, pasta. But even if you just cut bread, I'd be intrigued to say how much more balanced your eating would be. Bread is extra for almost everybody that's eating it. And it is addictive. It's a simple carbohydrate, but it's not good for you. It's very low in nutrient density, very low in protein, very high in carbs. So if you want to be simplistic, like what's your first action step? Cut out bread for a period of time and see how you feel. Odds are you're going to feel significantly better. You're going to have more energy. If you're overweight, you're going to lose weight. One statistic I wanted to share with you is just the change in average size of a human in our country. In the mid to late 1970s, the average size of an adult man was 173 pounds. In 2021, the average size of an adult man is 200 pounds, 27 pounds heavier on average, regardless of height. So think about that. Although there certainly are some more, like weightlifting and things have become more popular, there's certainly a percentage of people who are more muscular dense. There's actually less people who have physical laborious jobs. So maybe that may or may not even fully be true, but the average size of a person is dramatically higher. And much of that, unfortunately, is body fat with the rise in diabetic issues. So nutritionally, if you want a better actionable plan, you can go, for those that are active clients, you can go to your Align Your Health book, or if you're a really long-term client, your cruise ship or nursing home book. Chapters 3 and 4 cover the nutritional aspect, and Appendix A has the like eating plan, grocery shopping list, all the stuff that really goes with this. And so eating the advanced eating plan for a period of time, and basically what you're doing, you're moderating protein. We just talked about why. You're cutting all refined carbohydrates. You're cutting out high glycemic sugars, which are basically higher fruit, or not high glycemic fruits, which are really higher fructose fruits. So like lower fructose or lower glycemic fruits are going to be lemons, limes, berries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, Granny Smith apples, which are, less sweet, things like that. But by doing so, if you do the advanced plan, inevitably what tends to start happening is you balance your blood sugar by balancing your insulin response. A very typical response is that somebody starts the advanced plan, they feel okay the first day or two, and then they feel like crap day 3, 4, and 5, and they're really cranky. Some people get a headache. And why is that? It's literally their body is so addicted to carbs that they're going through like a drug withdrawal from the carbohydrate withdrawal. But on the other side of it is more energy, deeper, high quality sleep. What else would be like less sleep necessary, healthier skin. Weight loss, so many things. Now, a couple other things to think about for adding nutrients. So some other things that are shown to help with blood sugar regulation. One is N-acetylcysteine, which was also very popular for some things to take for helping the immune system, specifically regarding these last 4 years. And then chromium. Chromium helps your body with blood sugar regulation. And so chromium, I would not personally, for most of you, take chromium by itself. The way to get chromium is through a good, healthy multivitamin. So B vitamins help with this. They help restore, repair the effects of too much blood sugar damage. The depletion of B vitamins is linked to like the neuropathies and that kind of stuff. So if you're only going to take one supplement to help regulate your blood sugar, just like every other talk we do, the thing that you should be taking as a bare minimum is the men's, women's, or children's multivitamin. It has so many cofactors that help with turning carbohydrates into energy. It has chromium. It has all the B vitamins. It has some vitamin D. It has just a ton of stuff. So starting with the multivitamin, that is a huge starting point. If you want or need help beyond that, schedule an appointment with nutritionist Mackenzie and sit down and go through and like make an action plan. She is just excellent at assessing how you can help make changes, whether you need to make small changes or big changes. Mackenzie is excellent at helping or doing so. So that's just one thing to look at. And when I talk about Mackenzie, that's for active clients, for especially for adults. But if you have a child that you're concerned about with diabetes, or pre-diabetes or any of that kind of stuff, she's excellent with kids too. Some other things, vitamin D3 is helps with all sorts of management of this. Now, we're not talking about type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a much more genetic condition, but actually one of the larger studies with vitamin D levels, we think about vitamin D, getting it from the sun, preventing cancer, but vitamin D is linked to, with having good levels of vitamin D, the prevention of at least 12 different cancers by 50% or more when you get your vitamin D level over 50. Additionally, when your vitamin D level is high, and think about this for children, there's a dramatic decrease in turning on the genes for type 1 diabetes. So even though type 1 diabetes is a genetic condition, they've shown that people inadvertently turn on their type 1 diabetes genes. So isn't that crazy to think about? Even genetic conditions, the Human Genome Project, more than 20 years old now, showed that genes are like a light switch. They can be turned on and off. Heart disease genes, cancer genes, diabetes genes can be turned on and off through choices. And that's where the proactive medicine versus even preventative medicine. Proactive means you're making choices due to self-value. And, I'm going to give you one other analogy here. And this is, again, in multiple books, but think about, what would you give up as far as your health for $1 million? Would you give up your kidney? Would you give up your liver? Would you give up your ability to walk? Would you be willing to live in chronic pain for the rest of your life? Odds are the answer, and if you went through thing after thing after thing, odds are the answer is no. And if you wouldn't trade your health for $1 million, if you wouldn't trade certain aspects of your health for $1 million, then the question becomes, from a self-value perspective, what are you willing to invest in? Are you therefore willing to invest in more organic fruits, vegetables, grass-fed meats, or dairy? Are you more willing to invest in more chiropractic for your family? Are you more willing to invest in more supplementation, detoxification, protocols and programs that get you healthy? Are you willing to invest in, gym memberships? Gym memberships are actually at an all-time high. And that's actually a kind of an interesting transition. When you talk about exercise for diabetes, I said this in the first masterclass, but I want to reiterate it. Exercise is the one thing that can create a channel from outside your cell to inside your cell without the use of insulin for absorbing sugar into your cells. So even if you are severely insulin resistant, severely sugar or diabetic, exercise, especially more intense, high intensity exercise, is linked to lowering diabetes symptoms, lowering blood sugar, reversing diabetes, almost as much as diet. So being in a good exercise routine where you're getting out of breath, but you're working hard and intensely and often for short periods of time is so dramatically linked to prevention, management, or reversal of diabetes. And for so many people, they're taking medication and they're not doing the things that they could do to be better for that. And one last, I said, we went through 3 medications. I actually prepared to go through 7, but I'm going to cap it at 4. And the fourth one that I want to talk about today is Ozempic or Wegovy, the diabetes or weight loss drug. People have changed that. And I can't tell you how many people have come into the clinic and they said like, hey, I lost 30 pounds. And I go to celebrate with them. I'm like, how'd you lose it? My doctor switched my medication. And it's like, interesting. So you didn't change your diet? Nope. You didn't. And we go down this, you didn't exercise more. You're not getting more sleep. You're not lowering your stress level. You're not, nope. You're not detoxing. Nope. Doctor changed my diet, dropped 20, 30 pounds, and that's great. I'm happy. A lot of people feel better losing that weight. But again, one of the side effects of that drug specifically is increased signs of aging, like actually looking worse, like your skin is aging, your body is showing signs of internal aging, damage to the pancreas. So you look thinner, but worse if you take it over a long enough period of time. And it's certainly popular. I mean, the magic weight loss drug of the stars, it was advertised at. The other thing it does is it's got a huge link to depression, a huge link to depression for many people. Is it considered a minor side effect? I don't know the number of people who describe depression, but it negatively affects mood in many, many people. And the thing about, like, when you look at this in reverse, exercise has over 1,000 studies showing that it does the exact opposite, that it's linked to not being depressed, that it's linked to more like even if you're on an antidepressant, your antidepressant working better, like just thing after thing after thing is better when you look at how can I fix the problem? How can I address the root cause? So, as we finish up here, the last mystery word is poisons. The last mystery word is poisons. But, I hope you really, I'm going to say enjoyed, but really, I hope the time you've taken for this last hour plus for these 2 masterclasses, I hope it really stimulates your thinking to value yourself and look at how can you address things before they're a problem. And if they are a problem, how to take them more serious to a point where you can really make the changes and hold yourself accountable to live your absolute best life. Because I just about guarantee there, if you really look at it from 10 or 30,000 foot view, there are so many people that rely and thrive when you are healthy. There's people that rely on you, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, uncle, a provider for a family, whether you're going to provide for your family. The choices you make now make such a difference. So I appreciate you very much for taking time. Make sure you make an action step or more and have a very blessed